I didn't lose my son in an argument. I lost him in a decision he made without telling me one that left me exposed, blamed, and easy to replace. If you've been crossed by family like this, share your experience in the comments. Robert's house sat at the edge of a worn neighborhood, the kind where sidewalks ended without explanation. He parked, cut the engine, and handed me a glass of water before saying anything else. Phone's in the kitchen. Landline still works. The call to my company took less than a minute. Dispatch answered. I asked for my supervisor, told him I needed emergency leave, no details. He paused, asked when I'd be back. I said I didn't know yet. He said we'd talk later and hung up first. The landline stayed warm in my hand. I dialed Ethan from the same phone, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. A minute later, a text came through on Robert's phone, which I had used to leave my number. Can't talk. In meetings. I'm handling it. No punctuation. No time frame. Robert leaned against the counter. He didn't look at the screen. Why were you coming to Phoenix? Ethan booked the trip. For what he said, it'd be easier to explain in person. Who paid? He did. Or he said he did. And your wallet? He kept it. Boarding was faster that way. Robert nodded once like he'd checked a box. So he planned the route and held the papers. That's right. He told me he'd heard versions of that before. Years earlier, a nephew had helped manage his accounts. Signatures copied. Forms rushed. By the time a banker called, the damage had already settled. We drove to a convenience store a few blocks away. I grabbed a change of clothes and a phone charger. At the register, the clerk slid the card back. Need ID? I explained. He pointed at a sign taped near the lottery tickets. Policy: cash only, without ID. Robert paid without comment. Outside, my phone vibrated with a call from work. The supervisor wanted clarity, asked whether I had lost documents, asked if this involved money. I said yes to the first and not yet to the second. He told me to keep him posted. His voice dropped at the end like the conversation might be recorded. Back at the house, Robert pulled a folded brochure from a drawer. Community Legal Aid. He set it near the charger. No rush, he said. Just information. The bank notification came as I sat down. A push alert from an account I hadn't touched that day. A transfer request pending review. The amount was large enough to trip an automated warning. The timestamp matched the afternoon. I called the bank. A recorded voice listed options. Fraud took longer than billing. When a person answered, she asked for verification I couldn't provide. She said the account showed recent activity authorized electronically. By me? I asked. By your credentials? She replied. The call ended with instructions to visit a branch with ID. Robert watched from the doorway. That's how it starts, he said. Paper first. Then people. I typed a short message to Ethan. Asked where my documents were. Asked why the bank flagged my account. The reply came slower this time. Stop worrying. I said I'm handling it. The spare room smelled faintly of detergent and old books. Robert pointed to the bed, then to the bathroom, then left me alone without ceremony. A few minutes later, his voice came from the hallway. Phone's ready when you are. The landline sat on a small table near the kitchen wall. I dialed the office by memory. Dispatch picked up, transferred me. My supervisor answered with his usual clipped greeting. I need emergency leave, I said. A pause followed. Papers shuffled on his end. For how long, don't know yet. What's going on? Personal issue. Another pause. He exhaled once. Text me when you have a return date. The call ended without reassurance. That was normal. In logistics, problems didn't get sympathy. They got tracked. Using the same phone, I called Ethan again, straight to voicemail. I tried once more. No answer. When I set the receiver down, Robert slid his phone across the table. Use mine. The number showed as unknown. It rang longer this time. No pickup. A text came back instead. Busy. I told you I'm handling it. Nothing else. Robert leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Why Phoenix? He said we needed to talk. About what he didn't say. Who booked the flight he did. And your ID, he offered to hold on to it. Faster through security. Robert nodded slowly. Convenient for him. I didn't respond. There wasn't much to add. He poured 2 cups of water and set one in front of me. Had a cousin once, he said. Managed my accounts for a year. Told me not to worry. I worried too late. What happened? Signatures copied. Loans stacked. Took lawyers to unwind it. The drive to the convenience store was short. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I grabbed jeans, a shirt, socks, toiletries. At the register, the clerk scanned the items and asked for ID when I slid the card forward. I don't have it, I said. No ID, no card. Robert paid in cash. Outside, my phone vibrated. Work again. Any update, my supervisor asked. Not yet. You traveling without documents? Yes. That's a problem. I know. He lowered his voice. HR will want clarity if this drags. I'll keep you posted. Back at the house, Robert set a folded brochure on the table. Legal aid. Community center address printed in bold. Just an option, he said. No pressure. The phone buzzed again. This time a bank alert. A transfer request flagged for review. The amount sat just below the daily threshold. I called the number listed. Automated prompts led to a live agent. She asked for verification questions I couldn't answer without ID. There's activity on your account today, she said. Authorized electronically. By who? By the account holder. That wasn't me. She apologized, explained policy suggested visiting a branch. The call ended with a case number. Robert watched without comment. When I looked up, he spoke. They always assume the system works. Another text from Ethan came through. Relax, it's temporary, I typed back. Asked where my documents were, asked why the bank flagged my account. The reply arrived slower. You're overreacting. I set the phone down and plugged it in. The screen lit again before the battery hit 10%. Another alert followed. New application submitted. Pending approval. Robert tapped the brochure once. Tomorrow, he said, you should talk to someone. Not yet. He didn't argue. Dinner was simple. Soup from a can. Bread warmed in the oven. We ate without small talk. Afterward, Robert washed his bowl and left mine by the sink. Get some rest, he said. Morning comes fast. Sleep didn't settle much. The charger hummed. Notifications stayed silent for a while. When the screen lit again, it was another message from Ethan. Stop calling. I said I'm fixing it. No apology, no explanation. I drafted a reply, erased it, drafted another, erased that too. Instead, I opened the bank app. The transfer status had changed. Processing. The legal aid center opened at 9. We arrived 10 minutes early and waited on a bench near the entrance. A woman stepped out, unlocked the door, and waved us in without asking questions. At the front desk, a receptionist slid a clipboard toward me. Name, date of birth, reason for visit. Missing documents, I said. Possible identity misuse. She circled a line on the form. Check this box, too. A caseworker called us back. She spoke quickly, typed faster, and asked for a timeline. Robert stayed silent. I laid out the facts. Lost wallet. Son handled travel, bank alerts, pending transactions. She nodded, then pulled up a screen. There's already something attached to your name. What kind of something? A limited power of attorney. Filed electronically. She turned the monitor so I could see it. My name sat at the top. The signature matched mine well enough to pass at a glance. That isn't mine, I said. Date stamp says yesterday afternoon, she replied. Do you remember signing anything? No. She checked another line. Submission time coincides with your flight. The words landed heavier than expected. That flight had been booked by Ethan. Boarding pass sent to my phone. Wallet held by him for convenience. A lawyer joined us a few minutes later. He reviewed the screen, then asked a series of questions without inflection. If this isn't challenged quickly, liability could stick, he said, especially if funds move. How quickly today would be ideal. Tomorrow increases risk. I called Ethan from the center's phone. This time he answered. What's going on? He asked, voice tight. There's a power of attorney filed under my name. Silence stretched. I did that to help, he said. Banks move slow otherwise. You signed for me. Temporarily. Without asking. I was trying to fix things. What things? He avoided the question. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Robert leaned closer but didn't interrupt. Where are my documents? I asked. I have them. When can I get them back? Soon. Let me finish what I started. The call ended before I could respond. The lawyer slid a form across the table. Request copies of every transaction tied to this authorization. That starts a paper trail. Robert tapped the corner of the page. Do it. I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. The caseworker warned about timelines. The bank had 48 hours to verify before releasing full funds. After that, clawbacks became complicated. A notification buzzed on my phone as we stood to leave. Email from the bank. Subject line short. Application approved. Disbursement pending. In the car, Robert drove without commentary. At a stoplight, he spoke. People think paperwork is boring. It's only boring when it works. Back at the house, another call came through from work. This time it was HR. We've been notified of a potential financial issue connected to your name, the woman said. Are you under investigation? Not formally. Keep us informed. Access to certain systems may be limited until this clears. I understand. I forwarded the legal aid contact details to the bank. Requested holds. Requested reviews. Each request generated a confirmation number. Ethan texted again. You're making this worse. The bank notification came before breakfast. Partial funds released. Primary account restricted. A short sentence followed with a case number and a reminder to bring identification to any branch visit. The message sat there without urgency, like a receipt. Robert poured coffee and slid a mug across the table. That's the first drop, he said. More will follow. A call from work cut in before I could answer. The project director spoke, this time not my supervisor. We're pausing your involvement on the Mesa rollout, he said. Risk management decision. For how long? Until legal clears your name. Understood. HR will formalize it. The line went dead. A calendar alert disappeared from my phone. Access to a shared folder failed to load. Small signs all aligned. A knock came mid-morning. Robert opened the door and stepped aside without greeting. Ethan stood there, jaw set, hands empty. We need to talk, he said. Robert glanced at me. 5 minutes. Ethan entered and stayed near the door. He didn't sit. You escalated this, he said. You went outside the family. There's a loan under my name, I replied. And a signature. It's an investment bridge, he said. Short term. You filed a power of attorney. Limited, he said quickly. Temporary. Without consent. He rubbed his forehead. You don't get the pressure I'm under. Deals fall apart if timing slips. Where are my documents? I asked. Safe, he said. I'll return them once this stabilizes. Robert cut in. You're done here. Ethan turned toward him. This is between us. It's my house, Robert said. And this is no longer a conversation. Ethan's voice rose. You're choosing strangers over your own son. Robert opened the door. You're leaving now. Ethan hesitated, then stepped out. You're making a mistake, he said to me. This could have stayed contained. The door closed. Robert locked it without ceremony. Another alert arrived minutes later. The bank confirmed the freeze on my primary account. A separate email followed from compliance requesting cooperation to avoid referral. I called the number listed. A compliance officer explained the process. Cooperation meant statements, documents, timelines. Non-cooperation meant escalation. Where does this go if I don't comply? I asked. Law enforcement, she said. Financial Crimes Unit. Send the forms. The email landed before the call ended. By noon, HR sent a formal notice. Temporary suspension from the MESA project. Access revoked pending review. The language stayed neutral, the effect did not. Robert laid the legal aid brochure beside the laptop again. This is the point, he said. Family fixes stop here. I opened the complaint portal. The form asked for names, dates, amounts. Each field forced a decision. Listing Ethan's name felt procedural, not personal. I typed it anyway. Robert stood behind the chair. Once you submit it, moves on its own. Good, I said. A final prompt asked whether I consented to information sharing with financial institutions. I selected yes. The submission confirmation appeared with a reference number and a note about next steps. Intake review pending. Contact within 48 hours. Robert gathered the mugs and carried them to the sink. You did what the system requires, he said. Now you let it work. I forwarded the confirmation to the bank and HR. Another knock sounded lighter this time. A delivery driver handed over an envelope. Inside were copies of the loan terms mailed automatically after approval. The interest rate sat higher than expected. The calls started before 8. The bank went first, then the legal aid center, then a number that introduced itself as a financial investigator assigned to my case. Each voice asked for the same things: dates, authorizations, travel records, and each one logged my answers without comment. By mid-morning, paperwork covered the table. Statements waited to be signed. Consent forms needed initials. I compared signatures line by line, matching my own against the one filed electronically. The resemblance bothered me less than the timing. Boarding pass issued at 2:11 p.m. Authorization submitted at 2:46, both tied to a flight Ethan had booked. The investigator asked for copies of everything: screenshots, emails, ticket confirmations. He requested a written timeline by the end of the day. Any prior financial arrangements with your son, he asked. None formal. Any history of joint accounts? No. He paused, then continued. That matters. Access to my company systems disappeared an hour later. Password rejected. Internal email bounced back. A message from IT followed, brief and clinical, explaining temporary suspension due to an external review. A call slipped through from an old colleague who still had my personal number. Words moving, he said. People are guessing. About what? About why you vanished mid-project. Let them guess. He lowered his voice. Be careful. Management's nervous. Another notification landed while we spoke. Meeting invites removed from my calendar. Deadlines reassigned. Ethan's message arrived around noon. Longer than the others. Paragraphs this time. You didn't have to do this. We could have fixed it together. I needed time. You know how things are right now. Please stop the complaint. I'll make it right. I read it once, then again. The words circled the same idea without touching the problem. No mention of consent, no explanation for the signature. Just urgency. Robert watched from the kitchen table. He didn't ask to see the screen. Are you ready to carry this for him? He asked. No. That answer came faster than expected. I forwarded Ethan's message to the investigator and copied the legal aid email. No reply added. The system stamped the time and generated a receipt. Forms kept coming. One asked me to confirm I had not benefited from the loan. Another requested acknowledgement of potential criminal referral if fraud was substantiated. I signed both, The investigator called back in the afternoon. His tone had shifted from informational to precise. "There's indication of intentional misrepresentation," he said. "This may move beyond civil review." "What does that mean?" "It means the file could be referred to the county attorney." I thanked him and hung up. Ethan called again. The phone rang until voicemail picked up. A second call followed. I let that one ring too. Robert set a plate in front of me. "Eat something." I took a few bites without tasting much. The phone buzzed again, this time from a cousin asking vague questions. I replied with a short line about a legal issue and left it there. By evening, the Legal Aid Center confirmed receipt of all documents. The bank acknowledged cooperation. HR sent another message confirming my status remained unchanged pending outcome. Ethan sent one more text. "You're choosing strangers over blood." I blocked the number. The investigator emailed a summary of next steps: additional verification, possible interviews, potential escalation. He asked whether I was willing to continue cooperating if the case moved forward. I typed yes and hit send. Robert cleared the table and folded the empty forms into a stack. "Once it crosses that line," he said, "it doesn't come back." I know. Night settled into routine sounds. The phone stayed still for a while. When it vibrated again, it was the investigator. "They've flagged the authorization as potentially fraudulent," he said. "That changes the scope." "To what criminal review?" The investigator returned the next morning with a different tone. He didn't start with questions. He started with names. "Your son wasn't acting alone," he said. "There's a partner, a younger man, mid-30s, listed as a co-applicant on several filings. The connection hadn't shown up in the first pass because the paperwork spread across multiple lenders. Once the accounts lined up, the pattern stopped hiding. He pitched short-term capital plays," the investigator said. "High interest, fast turnaround. Your name carried weight." "How many loans?" I asked. "Enough to matter." Documents followed by email, spreadsheets replaced summaries, dates and amounts stacked into a chain. My signature or a close enough copy sat at the base of each guarantee. The partner was summoned first. He agreed to talk within hours. That moved things faster than expected. A lawyer for one of the lenders called before lunch. He didn't introduce himself beyond his firm name. "Our client has reason to believe you were aware of these arrangements," he said. "That's incorrect. You benefited indirectly." "How, by extension of credit to your household?" There was no extension. He shifted tactics. Failure to intervene can carry consequences. Then speak to the investigator. The call ended with no pleasantries. A local reporter left a voicemail an hour later. She referenced a family-linked financial dispute and asked for comment. I deleted the message. Another outlet followed. Then another. None had full details. All had just enough to misread the situation. Robert muted the television when a ticker mentioned fraud investigations. "They'll sniff around," he said. "They always do." More files came in. Some showed email threads between Ethan and his partner. Others included pitch decks with my name listed under backing. No consent. No notification. I forwarded everything to the investigator and the legal aid contact. Each send generated a receipt. The lender's lawyer called again. This time his voice carried impatience. "If this reaches prosecution, collateral damage is inevitable," he said. "That's not my decision. You're choosing exposure. I'm choosing accuracy." He hung up. Ethan was formally summoned that afternoon. The notice arrived by certified email. A time, a location, a case number. No room for negotiation. He called me as soon as he saw it. "This went too far," he said. "They're treating me like a criminal. You filed documents under my name to keep things moving. You never asked." "I knew you'd say no." The line stayed open. His breathing carried through the speaker. "They're asking about everything now," he continued. "About the partner, about the loans. That's how it works. You could help." "I already did," I said, "by telling the truth." The call dropped. The investigator requested another meeting. This one covered cooperation terms. He laid out scenarios without emphasis. If evidence supported intent, the case would move to the county attorney. If not, it would remain civil with penalties attached. "Your cooperation matters," he said. "You'll have it." He nodded and closed his folder. Work sent another update near evening. Project reassignment confirmed. No timeline for review. A line about confidentiality followed. Robert cooked dinner while I sorted documents into folders labeled by lender. Each folder grew thicker than the last. The reporter called again. I let it go to voicemail. A final email arrived after dark from the legal aid attorney. Short subject line. Next step. The message explained that based on the assembled evidence, the matter would be referred for prosecutorial review. A formal notice would follow. I replied with a single word. Acknowledged. Robert glanced over. "That's the turn," he said. The request for additional documentation came early. This time it wasn't framed as suspicion. It was procedural. Dates, locations, confirmation that the boarding passes matched the authorization timestamps. I sent everything in a single packet. Flight records, call logs, device history showing where my phone was when the power of attorney went through. The investigator replied within the hour. Received. This helps. Another email followed from the bank. Partial access restored. The primary account remained monitored, but the freeze lifted enough to cover basic expenses. No apology, just a notice of status change. Robert glanced at the screen when I told him. "That's movement," he said. The audit request arrived before noon. Voluntary comprehensive retroactive. I signed the consent without negotiation. Years of statements opened to review. Payroll deposits, retirement contributions, old transfers that had nothing to do with Ethan. The cleaner the record, the less room for interpretation. The investigator called again in the afternoon. "Your son's partner is cooperating," he said. "Full disclosure." What changed? He wants leniency. That answered itself. By the next day, the partner's name appeared in a formal update. He had turned over emails, contracts, and pitch decks. My name highlighted in places I'd never seen before. Guarantees framed as assumptions. Authority implied, never granted. Another bank notice came through. Restrictions reduced further. A line at the bottom confirmed the reversal of one flagged transaction. Work sent a short message soon after. System access partially reinstated. Project status unchanged, but the tone had shifted. Fewer conditions. Fewer cautions. Ethan stopped calling. A meeting was scheduled at the county building. Final review. The investigator, a representative from the bank, and legal counsel on both sides. Robert offered to drive. I declined. Took a rideshare instead. The room was plain, a long table, water pitchers untouched. Ethan sat across from me, hands folded, eyes fixed on the surface. No greeting passed between us. The prosecutor entered and reviewed the file. She asked questions without drama. "Did you authorize any of these guarantees?" "No." "Were you aware of the loans at the time they were issued?" "No." "Did you receive any benefit?" "No." She turned to Ethan. Asked the same questions. His answers stretched longer, filled with qualifiers. Pressure, opportunity, intent to repay. The partner's statement was read into the record. Cooperation noted, evidence summarized. No one raised their voice. No one pleaded. The prosecutor closed the folder. Based on the evidence, this matter will proceed as a criminal case. Ethan looked up then. His mouth opened-closed again. The meeting ended without ceremony. Dates and next steps distributed on paper. We stood at the same time. Ethan hesitated as if waiting for something. Nothing came. Outside, the phone buzzed. A message from the investigator confirmed the classification. Financial fraud. Filing complete. Another message followed from the bank. Final adjustment approved. I stepped away from the entrance and answered a call from work. The project director spoke briefly. "We'll be in touch once this resolves," he said. "Your access remains active." "That's fine." The call ended. No congratulations. No relief. At home, Robert had already cleared the table. The folders stayed stacked thinner now. He nodded once when I told him how it went. "That's the turn," he said again, this time quieter. The notice arrived without ceremony. Case number. Findings attached. Fraud confirmed. Restitution ordered. The language stayed clinical, stripped of anything that might resemble judgment. Ethan's name appeared in the header, followed by a list of violations and a payment schedule that would stretch for years. A separate update came from the licensing board tied to his work. Review concluded. Standing revoked. Partnerships dissolved. No appeals noted at this stage. I forwarded both documents to my lawyer and archived the originals. The folder closed with a soft click. Nothing followed that felt like relief. There was no call from Ethan after that. No message. No attempt to explain. Communication shifted to attorneys by default, as if the system itself had decided the boundary. Work confirmed my status the same week. Access fully restored. Project reassigned back to my desk. No meeting to welcome me back. No mention of what had happened beyond a line that read cleared of liability. The routine returned faster than expected. Emails stacked up. Deadlines moved again. My name reappeared on internal threads as if it had never left. I finished packing 2 days later. Robert drove us to a diner just off the highway, the kind of place that served breakfast all day and didn't ask questions. We sat across from each other with menus we already knew. "You heading out today?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning." He nodded. "Long drive, long enough." The server poured coffee and left us alone. We talked about traffic patterns, construction delays, the kind of things that filled space without asking for anything back. After a while, Robert said, "You did what most people avoid. I did what was left." He didn't argue. The check came. He reached for it. I slid my card across the table first. This time no one asked for ID. Outside, he shook my hand once. Firm. No extra words. Back at the house, I finished loading the car. The folders stayed behind, boxed and labeled, waiting for retrieval if needed. The legal aid brochure went into the trash. Its job was done. That night passed without interruption. No alerts, no calls. The phone stayed still on the nightstand. Morning came early. I left the key on the counter and sent Robert a short message thanking him for the spare room. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was enough. The drive out of Phoenix took longer than expected. Construction narrowed lanes. Traffic slowed. The radio cycled through stations until I turned it off. A text came through from my lawyer confirming the restitution schedule had been accepted. I acknowledged it and put the phone face down. Somewhere past the city limits, I stopped for gas. Paid at the pump, grabbed a bottle of water. No one recognized me. No one needed to. I drove for a few hours without a plan beyond the next exit. The trip wasn't about distance, it was about motion. At a rest stop, I checked work messages and replied to what mattered. The rest could wait. There was no urge to call Ethan, no list of things left unsaid. Everything that needed stating had already moved through the proper channels and landed where it belonged. The road opened up again. Speed settled. The car held steady. By late afternoon, I pulled into a small town and checked into a motel. One night only. paid up front. The clerk handed over a key card and pointed toward the parking lot. The room had a desk and a chair, and a bed that looked like every other bed I'd slept in on business trips. I set my bag down and opened the laptop to confirm the next day's schedule. Work emails continued as normal. A meeting request for the following week appeared. I accepted it and closed the calendar. Dinner came from a place across the street. Sandwich and chips. I ate without thinking much about it. Before turning in, I sent one last message to my lawyer asking to be notified only if something required action. He replied a minute later. Understood. The phone went on the charger. The room stayed still. In the morning, I would head back, rejoin the flow pickup where things had paused. Not reset, just adjusted. Nothing more needed explaining.